A stunner, not so much that they beat the Blazers, but that they swept them. What did we learn about the Pelicans and Alvin Gentry post Boogie Cousins after he went down on January 26th, played hyper fast, scored a ton? How does that carry over into this season?
Well, I think, one, it shows the brilliance, really, of Alvin Gentry in terms of what he was able to do. That's when you find out about a coach's ability. When they have to be faced with a lot of adversity, you lose a guy where you were trying to figure out how you're going to play both of them, because it's not easy to play those two guys at the same time. They had figured some things out. Remember, they didn't have Drew early in the season because of the injury. And then he just said, you know what, we're going to play fast. We're going to get up and down. We're going to put so much pressure on you defensively with how fast we play. And, boy, did it ever work. The question now, though, with the revamped roster, can you play that fast? You know, when you don't have a guy like Rajon Rondo, who is great at pushing it ahead, kicking the ball up. When you have a point guard that throws it ahead, wings run faster.
Right.
Bigs run.
Right.
You're bringing in now Elfrid Payton, not necessarily known as a pace guy. You're bringing in Jared Jack at this stage of his career, definitely not going to be a pace guy. So there are going to be a lot more questions heading into this training camp for New Orleans, not just with Anthony Davis and whether or not he's there long term, but what are we going to be this year? Are we a playoff team with arguably, you know, with definitely one of the 5 best players, I'd say, in the league? That's a big concern. If I got one of the 5 best players in the league, I should not be asking a question as to whether or not we're a playoff team.
Right. Now, I would say this. I'm going to be a straight shooter on this one. The reason, and, you know, you could say coaching from Gentry's standpoint. You could say the team collectively got together after Cuz went down. But I'm going to say it was playoff Rondo at his best. He did it. He showed it. He could do it in Chicago the year before. They let him go. Didn't get to the playoffs last year. You got him going to New Orleans. We've seen another display of playoff Rondo. And now you let him go. So how do you fill that void? And I think it was a reach in the dark to go get Elfrid Payton and bring him in, because he, to me, is probably the closest thing to a Rajon Rondo out there to facilitate the team. And I call him the baby double guys. You know, the 7, 7, and 7 stat line. He's that guy, I think, that they will fill that void to be able to throw that pitch ahead pass, like you said, get the wings involved, get AD involved in the pick and roll into the basket or pop. And so I think they're trying to fill that void, but let's be real. Rondo was the guy that really took that team into the playoffs and a sweep against the Blazers.
Drew Holiday was pretty spectacular as well in that Blazers series in particular, but playoff Rondo was huge. 12 assists a game over 2 series, the best assist average of his postseason career, but he's off in La La Land with LeBron now. Our David Griffin, for one, thinks he leaves behind a very large void.
But it was a really profound loss, I think, in New Orleans for them to lose Rondo. From a basketball IQ standpoint, which LeBron alluded to, from a veteran leadership standpoint, and most importantly, Drew Holiday played at an incredibly elite level when he did not have to be the one to facilitate for everyone, and he could focus on being an attacking guard. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see exactly what happens with that group in the absence of Rondo, because, again, I think they're a team that could potentially slide out of the playoff picture. And that's a big part of the reason why.
LeBron James described Rondo as cerebral. You've heard that from every coach who's ever been with him, whether they got along or not. After the fact, they say this guy is incredibly smart as a basketball player. How big of a hole is this?
I think it's tremendous. I don't know that they can replace. I think Drew hit it right on the head, because the thing about Rondo, what he allowed everybody to do, and you heard David talk about it, he put everybody in a position of comfort. You know, like he allowed you to not have to think. He allowed his teammates to play off instinct. He set the table. And I remember talking with Alvin Gentry about it during the season last year. He was blown away. He said he was basically my assistant head coach. You know, he would come up with game plans, strategies, nuance to the game. I mean, there's just so much he brought to the table. And then that leadership element is so critical, because when you think about Drew and Anthony, 2 great guys, 2 great teammates, but you don't necessarily think of them as being that leader. And they lead a little bit more quietly, more by example. But you do got to have somebody who's willing to challenge and willing to hold others accountable. And it can't just be your coach. So it's going to be a tremendous loss that I don't think that even if Elfrid Payton statistically has a solid year, that he can fill that void. So it's going to be a challenge. I do think that New Orleans could find themselves on the outside looking in from a playoff standpoint, and that would be a shame when you have a guy of the talent of Anthony Davis.
And how does this change Drew Holiday's season as well? You know, you heard David Griffin talking about it a moment ago, that Rondo allowed him to be a different kind of player than he's sometimes been asked to be.
And I think the organization saw that, and I think that's why they're comfortable starting him at the shooting guard position right now, and Elfrid Payton coming over from Phoenix to start at the point, because they feel that Drew Holiday is probably the best Drew at the two.
Yeah.
And the team is great, because one thing that playing a shooting guard position, if you can have a shooting guard that could also pass the ball, that's a double-edged sword right there. Having a point guard that can facilitate, and not only that, you pass it to your shooting guard who can also facilitate. I mean, that's a plus.
Yeah, and you know, playoff Rondo's gone. There is no playoff Peyton. there was Gary, but Elfrid hasn't been in the postseason yet, so we don't know what playoff Peyton looks like. Lots more to get to here on the Pelicans, including their summer free agents work. Julius Randle, how he figures to fit in New Orleans next.
White deodorant, huh?
The breathtaking talent and athleticism of Anthony Davis on full display. Davis with the one-handed block. Oh, Davis! A corkscrew jam. Up high and down hard. A major rack attack. The razzle-dazzle. Holy cow! What an incredible play by Anthony Davis.
He has so many weapons to work with. Ooh. Remember, the Pelicans didn't have a first-round draft pick in June. They did do some work later in the summer. The LeBron James deal in L.A. meant the Lakers couldn't keep Julius Randle. He signs for 2 years in New Orleans. The Pelicans also picked up Jahlil Okafor, the third overall pick in 2015, gets a fresh start in the Big Easy. Randle backs up Nikola Mirotic, or at least we have that on the depth chart at the moment. Two guys who were not on the roster this time last year. What does that mean for a full season under Alvin Gentry this time around?
First of all, playing in the Western Conference, you're going to need shooting, outside shooting, especially at the power forward position, which is the stretch forward position in this case with Mirotic. Second, I think they got the steal of free agency in Julius Randle, signed him to a 2-year deal, not that big contract.
Not a huge deal, no.
But Julius Randle, to his defense, has some room to work, because I think it's a player option after this year. But I think just getting those two guys and having them battle it out, it might be nice for Mirotic won't start, and Julius will get the call to start at power forward. But I like him. You talk about a guy that if Anthony Davis could find other teams and be another playmaker on the floor, I know for a fact that Julius Randle is one of those guys that can make that play or make that hockey assist to get other teammates involved.
Yeah, Randle and Mirotic are very different types of players, and without Davis on the floor, certainly could play together. Randle likes to handle it in the open floor, and obviously Mirotic is a stretch guy.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see some lineups where the three of them are on the floor at times, just depending on matchups. And it's really going to be about what team finishes for Alvin Gentry in that group. And I think Randle is going to be critical. I do think of him more as a six-man, because he's like an instant offense guy. And with this roster now, I think he becomes critical for them. I mean, I think he's a guy that they're going to need to get 15, 16 points a night. But he can also be a playmaker. He's going to have to rebound. But I think ultimately for this team to sustain what we saw them get last year, I really think how they utilize Anthony Davis is going to be important. Not so much the scoring and the rebounding and the defense, but I think he's got to become more of a playmaker on this team, because he's one of the as unique an offensive players we have in the league, because you can use him in so many areas. You know, you got to double him on the block. Right. He's a guy that only averaged 2 assists last year, because I don't think he focused more on scoring, because he had Rondo and he had Drew as facilitators. And he also had DeMarcus, who's a guy that gets around 4 or 5 assists a game. I think that's an area, if I'm Alvin Gentry, yeah, we got to still try to play fast, but I need you to make others better. And I think you're going to see a lot of times, let's have Drew be the big fella. You're going to see when they go post with him, he's going to have to learn where when he gets that catch, let's say you're up as a defender, when he gets that catch and you go to double, he's going to have to be able to make these passes when guys are cutting for layups. He's going to have to make the corner opposite pass across court, hitting a three-point shooting, because they're going to give him spacing. The other thing I think you'll see him potentially he'll be a guy that can run pick and rolls. You're going to see him in 4-5 pick and rolls where he's with a big
ball handler,
as a ball handler. A lot of times what you'll do, let's say I'm going to be him, you're going to be weak side.
Okay.
You guard me. They'll a lot of times when he gets that pass here, he'll come over and set that screen. Man, that is going to be hard to guard because he can really shoot it. He's got that pocket pass, but again, his ability to find that shooting outside, the three-point shooting with Mirotic, Etwan Moore, terrific shooter of the basketball as well. So they got guys that can shoot it. I just really think you're going to see him become more of a playmaker with this group. We saw Kevin Durant when he went to Golden State, he got better defensively, blocking shots, rebound. I think that's what's got to happen for Anthony Davis. As great as he is, he's got to do more. He's got to be a guy, if he goes to 4 or 5 assists a game with what he's doing, then this team's got a chance, I think, to get back to where they were a season ago with the new additions. But that's got to happen in my estimation.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Davis is a catch-and-score basketball player up until this point. I mean, having the likes of Drew Holiday, Rondo throughout his career, I mean, it was just basically catch, finish, catch, shoot. Now, if you don't have that going on, and now you're getting double teamed, you're going to have to be that playmaker. You're going to have to jump up from 2 assists to 4 assists to 5 assists, maybe a triple-double this season in one of these games. But to your fact and what you brought up, that's a great point. I think we need to see him be more of a facilitator sometime than just a scorer.
Some more Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
More Anthony Davis.
Bottom
We
line.
need more. We need more.
Already a great player. Now more moving forward. We've got more as well on the Pelicans. They're up to this summer. And we'll hear